we're talking under your roof. You know, it's one thing to know a lot about what somebody does. It's a whole nother thing to know about more of who somebody is. All right. Hey, well, we're back, and we've got, I don't want to say celebrity, but we have our first first celebrity. Like we hit it.
He's doing autographs.
Sam was joking. He said, you brought the JV, and we're like, you're the diva. What are you talking about?
Well, I got VIP parking outside. So that's one of the perks.
Yeah. So you probably by this point go, hey, that's Sam Nichols on there. That's right. This is Sam Nichols.
That's right.
And I'm Zach. This is Cameron, and we're still under your roof, and so we're just going through the same, kind of the same routine. We got a laid back conversation, and man, I'm excited to dive into it. I've gotten to know Sam probably just in the last few months, you know, in a personal way. But what's wild is, you know, you spent, and we'll jump around, but everybody knows Sam is a meteorologist. You've done this for 20 years. Highly awarded, you know, you're the guy. It's I get my weather from Sam. Like, what's going to happen today, Sam? So, but you've got a whole career prior to that.
Yeah. I was really fortunate to have two careers. I coached basketball for 33 years, loved every minute of it. And when I came to Abilene in the early 90s, I was out at a TV station, another one, and we were 14-3 on the same date. The year before, they were 3-14, and so the sports guy said, "This is kind of a neat story. Would you come on and be on our sportscast live?" And I was on their Sunday night extended sportscast. After it was over, their news director said, "Say, I've got a wild idea. We need a weekend weatherman. And you're so good on camera." And I said, I don't know anything about the weather. He said, you can learn the weather. What you can't learn is how to be on TV.
Yeah.
And he said, you got it.
And
I said, well, I was always in speech and debate and drama and stuff like that. So public speaking doesn't bother me. And I said, this kind of sounds like fun. I said, let me check with my athletic director and make sure it won't interfere. And my athletic director said, as long as it doesn't interfere with your basketball, that's great. So I started doing weekend weather. And I did at another station in town for about 6 months. And then I got a call from Jim McCurdy, and he and Bob Bartlett were on the phone and said, hey, you need to get over here with us. Yeah. And I started over there doing weekend weather. In fact, I had business cards that said weather coach on it. And Chuck Statler still
we should
calls
bring
me,
that back. I think we should bring that back.
I think so. Chuck Statler still calls me weather coach.
That's
right.
Good.
And so I did that on Saturdays and Sundays, weekend weather. And Gail Kiger was the general manager at KTAB, and he had always said, anytime you want to come full-time, we'll clear a spot for you, and we'll make room for you. We want you. And we were flying back in 2007 from the Sweet 16 in Oregon, and we had just finished up our last game. We were 27-5 or something. And I just knew in here, that's it. I heard the two words, that's it. And I leaned over to my wife, Sandy, and I said, that's it. I said, coaching's over. I'm going to go see Gail. And so I get home and I settle down and say, okay, now I want to find out if this is really what I'm supposed to be doing. And I said, we'll just wait and see. And I drive to work at McMurry and look over on the KTAB parking lot, and there's Gail's car at 7:30 in the morning. And so I call him. I said, you got a minute? And he said, oh, sure, come in. And so we sat and visited, and the rest is history.
Here we are, 20 years later.
Yeah.
But there was some overlap because you were doing that and coaching for the same time.
Exactly.
How much time overlap was that?
Probably 5 years.
Yeah. So 20 years full time. So really 25 years of weather. You got a 5-year overlap, 33 years of coaching.
Is that at McMurry?
12 at McMurry, and the 8 previous were at Abilene High. And I tell people I went to Abilene High and I went to McMurry, so I had access to my transcripts both places. So I could go back. I'm a much better student now than I was when I was there. But it was it's just been, I turned 75 November 16th. Presents are accepted. But,
can't even tell.
There you go.
This could be good timing for that.
And I've made the transition from being told I was good looking to now they say you look good. And you guys will be there one of these days. You'll make that transition,
Well, I know that in 33 years of coaching, I coached for 11 years. And then in the weather world, but there's a team there. We get to see what you show on TV for 30 minutes every afternoon or every evening or hour, however long the broadcast is. But y'all have got a team and stories, and I'm just sitting here thinking, like, there may not be a guy in the big country that has more stories than Sam Nichols. Like there really may not. Just in the coaching, if you went in the coaching box, you know.
Well, I've just had such a wonderful experience, and I've been so blessed, ridiculously blessed. But you work in the business world, you take team concepts, athletic concepts in there because we have a production staff behind the scene, and it takes all of us. And I'm real fortunate. The good news is I'm on TV more than anybody because I do the 4, 5, 6, and 10 weathercast. The bad news is I'm on TV more than anybody.
But now
you're stuck with me.
You and the production team and you guys, y'all are close. You got to
be. When there's storms, I'll stay there late and come early. I feel a tremendous responsibility to the people. And I have a family that lives down towards Buffalo Gap, and the husband travels, and the wife is home by herself with 2 little girls. And she called me and said, we're scared to death of storms. And I said, come up to the station and let me talk to your girls.
Wow.
And so we talk to them, and I do that all the time. I do more off camera than I do on camera with things like that.
I can see Cameron's wheels turning. He's like, I'm getting Addie at the weather station, man. I'm going to get her up there.
She's been up there.
It already happened.
She's been up there.
And
that's great.
I'm really fortunate to have nearly 14,000 followers on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it all started years ago when Facebook and social media was just getting started. And a lot of people my age at that point were just saying, well, I'm not going to have anything to do with that internet.
I remember that exact conversation with a family member.
I was not sure what to do because you feel very intimidated when 12-year-olds know more about it than you do.
Right.
But I had an email it's a text message from a guy that says, Sam's, we're over in Shackelford County. We're working on a highline and we smell smoke. Is there a wildfire? Do we need to get out of here? We don't have any phone service, but we can text. And this is back one of those dry years, where we were having a lot of wildfires. And I said, let me check. And I checked. I said, no, the fire is about 40 miles north of you, but the wind's blowing and you're okay. But a light went off in here, and I saw the power of reaching people through social media. And about 2 weeks later, I had somebody camping down on the Frio River. And they said, there's storms off to our west, Sam. What do we do? We don't have, nothing works. I said, well, there's a tornado warning 1 county over, so you need to really be on weather alert. And those 2 stories got me to where I said, I'm going to dominate social media, not avoid it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we do the Facebook Lives. One year, we had a hurricane, the last hurricane we had down on the coast. I came up on a Sunday morning, and I was going to do a Facebook Live and kind of update people. And I got a text, Facebook. I started my Facebook Live, and this message comes up and says, Sam, my granddaughter lives at Port Lavaca, and I don't know how it is down there. And I said, well, let me zoom in and see it. I have the capability to go in street address radar. Yeah. And I said, well, here's what's going on with her. Somebody else says, well, my grandmother lives over in so-and-so, Brazoria. And so we go over there. And I was on for an hour and a half, and I had 100,000 people at one point.
Wow.
From all over.
You were trending, Sam.
Yeah, I was. I have had several service members that says I'm in the desert.
Yeah, you went viral.
But my cousin lives, or my wife lives, or my home is, and another time, and this will come up maybe by as early as this football season. It was a football season on a Friday night. A line of storms came in, and everybody was affected. And I said, if you're watching Cooper in Odessa, you need to get under the stadium because there's a really bad storm coming. And then somebody said, well, we're at a game at Sweetwater and Snyder. What do we need to do? Oh, I'd give that. And so I just embrace social media, and I love the conversational aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because they'll always say, Sam, do you have your Nikes on? Because there's a running joke that during severe weather, I don't wear dress shoes. I wear my Nikes because we have a concrete floor and I'm on it for hours and hours.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I'm thinking run, like it's storm go.
Run. You got to run for cover.
Yeah.
So I feel a tremendous responsibility. When I come home, one night I came home and I said, Sandy, I was talking to my wife. I said, oh, did you see that at 10? I said, I was terrible. I said, I didn't, nothing came out right. And she said, you were fine. And I said, it just wasn't what I wanted to be. And she said, look, you do 20 weathercasts a week, you're not going to hit a home run every time.
Yeah.
Which was some good perspective.
Sure. Which is a good wife.
I still am going to try to hit 20
That's
out
right.
of 20.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Well, you got a spirit of excellence on you.
Well,
and so that, and you're reporting something that matters to people. You're dealing with people's fears as you're telling those stories of those young girls. I've got 2 daughters, and I've seen it's in every one of our homes,
Mm-hmm.
and so you're in everybody's house. You're in a very unique situation.
I grew up here in town. My grandparents farmed and ran cattle over at Eula. And my earliest memories, people ask me all the time how I got interested in weather. And my earliest memories during the early 50s, I was about 3 or 4 years old, and we would go visit them, and I'd spend the night with them. And my earliest memories during the drought of the 50s is sitting around their chrome dinette kitchen table, yellow chrome and yellow vinyl chairs that you'd stick to if you were wearing shorts in the summer, But they had 3 things that you could always count on their kitchen table: a copy of Progressive Farmer magazine, my granddad's King James Bible, and their hot pepper sauce. So, but we would sit around the table, hold hands, and pray for rain. Yeah. That's one of my earliest memories.
Wow.
And so and then when I started Little League Baseball, I loved baseball. And on game days, I would get up and put my uniform on at 8 o'clock in the morning. We might not play till 6.
Yeah.
And I'd start watching and listening to weather because I didn't want my game rained out.
Yeah.
And so, and then when I got into coaching, especially when I was coaching track, you had to adjust your workouts according to the...
In the springtime, there's always that first meet, no matter when you set it, the storm blows in, and it's just this constant thing.
Yeah, and you just have to adjust your schedules. But I'm just incredibly blessed to be able to do what I get to do.
Yeah.
And I love the people I work with.
I think one thing from an outsider perspective that I respect so much about you is, and you kind of mentioned it when you were describing, your job and how you take a responsibility to the people for that job. But, your personal brand, I think it extends way outside just being a meteorologist and someone that is known on TV, but you are involved in all kinds of stuff around the community. You're involved in the military affairs committee. You're involved in, you'll come and talk to the ag people, like what drives you to continue to do that after all these years later?
Well, I had great parents. My mother was a school nurse here in town for 30 years, and she had the heart of a nurse: compassion, empathy, and she was a giver. And I saw her do that. And I always believe more is caught than taught.
I do too. Yeah.
And watching my parents, Yogi Berra said you could observe a lot by watching, and I saw how she ministered to people in her job as a school nurse. My dad had a Texaco gas station on 8th and Hickory. And from Hickory, where his station was, back east towards Treadway, is predominantly an African-American neighborhood. My dad was one of the very first businessmen in Abilene to give credit to African-Americans. And I can remember sitting at his gas station, he had a little Texaco green file box with note cards in it. And that's back when gas was $19.9 a gallon or $29.9 a gallon. And he would have people come in and he would take out a card and they'd pay $1 on their account or whatever, but whether white, black, Hispanic, whatever. But he had a large number of African Americans just because of the proximity and the fact that he would give them that.
Right.
And I remember one time I was probably 5 or 6. A man, I'd say J.C. Rogers was his name, an African-American gentleman came in, and my dad always called him J.C., and he called him Mr. Nick. Everybody called my dad Mr. Nick. He was 6'3" and about 220, and he was Mr. Nick. But he referred to him as J.C. And he came in one day and to pay on his account and get some gas. I said, hi, J.C. And my dad said, no, that is Mr. to you. Mm-hmm. You, but he taught me either everybody counts or nobody counts.
Yep.
Yeah. Say that again.
Either everybody counts or nobody counts.
Good.
Yeah. When you and I had lunch a couple months ago, that struck a chord. I think I told you that day we came back to it, talked about it a lot. And what a powerful, because he could have said it. And there's the thing, you said things are caught, not taught. but he also modeled it.
Yes.
Because talk is cheap. We can say all the great things,
yeah.
but if we're not actually doing what we say,
That's right.
then what does it even matter? And so he had to have modeled that. And that example you just gave. So like talk about a powerful seed to be planted into your life.
Absolutely. And I can remember going into there used to be a W.T. Grant store on about 3rd and Cypress. And my mother, I'd had to go to the doctor, and she said, I had to get a shot or something. And she said, if you don't cry, we'll go down there and I'll get you a toy. And I said, we'll spend $1 on you or whatever. And so we go in there, and this is early 50s or mid 50s probably. And I was thirsty. So I went up and I saw 2 water fountains, and one of them said colored and one of them said white. And I said, I wonder if colored water comes out of there.
Yeah.
That's exactly the thought.
Yeah,
I said,
didn't even hit your mind.
I said, I'm going to go see. And I went up those steps and I turned the water on, and the store manager came by and said, no, you're not drinking out of that one. You drink out of this one. And my mother peeled him like an onion.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I had great parents.
Yeah.
And so that's a long answer to your question,
awesome.
but I had great parents, and they taught me, dedicate yourself, find something bigger than yourself, and give yourself away to it.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about basketball at McMurry, and I'm just going to make sure I don't get this incorrect. You retired as the all-time winningest women's basketball coach in McMurry University history. In 2017, you got inducted into the McMurry University Athletic Hall of Honor, and recently you were honored as the women's basketball coach of the All-Century team at the McMurry University. I know I want to get into something about basketball smiles, but before doing that, these things that were put in you as a young person and then growing up, you took all that into coaching. Yeah. You're in a college coach, whether it's a small or a large coach or a school, large or small school, you're bringing in people from different ethnic backgrounds, you're putting teams together, you're recruiting, how much did you find? I know there's tension in that because it's hard, but what are some things you learned about yourself in that team building?
Well, again, one of the hardest things I think in coaching, when I speak to coaching groups, is you want to balance having a relationship with your players and transparency and letting them get to know you as a person, but at the same time, not get into their business.
Yeah.
I just feel like most coaches, and just because we're human, you kind of go from bar ditch to bar ditch, because you don't want to be their buddy and, hang out with them at the clubs or whatever they're doing. But at the same time, you can't be distant from them.
Yeah, you got to know.
And so you try to maneuver that without getting up in their business too much.
Yeah.
And that was always the hardest thing for me. And the second thing, I'm a terrible loser. Sandy's always told me, you need to be a better loser. And I said, you show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser.
Yeah.
That's my theory.
And mic drop.
Now, I was so blessed that I had only 3 losing seasons in 33 years.
Say that again.
I only had 3 losing seasons.
Say that again.
Only 3 losing seasons.
There are not many coaches in any sport at any level in the United States of America that can say that.
Well, I had great players. I had great coaches model how to coach. I had Coach Harold Wilder and Coach Wiley Wise were my coaches in high school, and Coach David Middleton, who passed away last year or so, and they were great coaches. And then I had the privilege of student teaching with Stanley Wisenhunt, who is just a legend at Wiley High School. I was going to do football student teaching at Cooper with Coach Merrill Green, and Coach Green called me about late July and said, hey, Sam, Wiley at that time was a 2A school. They just lost one of their coaches who took a job as a principal somewhere else, and they're a coach short. And if you'll go to Wiley and do your student teaching, you'll get some hands-on experience.
Yeah.
If you come here to Cooper, you're going to stand around and watch us coach. He said, I think that's what would be best for you. And so I go out to Wiley, and Coach Joe Longley was a football coach, and he said, how about you coaching the JVs? And I said, what?
Do what?
He said, now we've got to have an official paid school person to go with you and call them the coach. And so my friend Bob Allstrand had just graduated from McMurry with me, and they paid him $500 to go with me. But I did everything.
Yeah.
I organized the workouts. I called the plays, offenses, defenses. and I was essentially the JV coach and had so much fun at Wiley. And in fact, they put me on the day they took pictures for the annual. They said, "You're getting your picture in our annual." And so, if you go back to that, it says Sam Nichols.
I got to pause.
teacher.
There is something.
Bulldog pride, baby.
There is something that you just said that I think you caught, but if you're listening, I don't know. There was actually a coach prior to Hugh Sandifer.
Yes.
Most people would never register that connection. It was, what was his name?
Joe Longley.
Joe Longley.
Mm-hmm.
Do you hear what I'm saying? So it's, man, I'm telling you, there's more stories here than there are in any other human in the whole ever.
And then part of the day I went with Stanley Whisenhunt to girls basketball. They just won state at Wiley. And so I got to see how he coached, a state championship coach.
Yeah.
Best coach I've ever known. Unbelievable. Other than my dad, he was the best coach I've ever seen. And then also got some classroom experience. Coach Longley, and things you can't do nowadays. I observed one day in American history with 32 juniors that included Joey Light and Tim Kelly. Both are superintendents.
They were in the class.
Yeah, they were in that class.
About to say, did Joey Light ever ask you for some coaching advice when he was teaching girls basketball?
He takes a lot of credit from his Holly days, but we're starting to get the under
This
the
is
roof
the real story
of Joey Light. He may be next on the mic.
But he, Coach Longley said, after one day observing with 32 juniors, he said, "Here's my grade book, here's the teacher's edition, and here's my paddle. I'm going to go to the field house and watch film." and he said, "If anybody gives you trouble, take Zach. If Zach or whomever or Cameron give you trouble, take him out in the hall and get Miss what's her name next door to witness it. Give them 3 licks." I said, "Okay."
How old were you?
I was it's my senior year at McMurry, so I was like 23.
23 years
old.
old.
3 years older than they are. And
you got the workbook, the plan, and the paddle.
And when they saw me come in, man, they broke me in. And, But we had a great time. And
Did you ever go use the paddle?
Yes, sir.
There you go.
I had to paddle Terry Crocker, who was 6'9", and that was one of the biggest challenges.
With
an upswing.
Cameron's 6'9".
Yeah,
we could recreate this.
I mean,
I would do it.
I thought about staying on the student desk and doing it just so I could get level.
I can be a witness. I can.
But I had so much fun. And then it came basketball season, and Stanley said, "Can you coach girls, JV girls?" And I said, "Sure, I can coach the JV girls." And so I coached JV girls and JV boys.
So, I mean, just kind of chronologically thinking in my head, I mean, you started really coaching while you were in college.
Right.
Did you have any jobs other than coaching in meteorology, I guess?
I knew in the third grade I was going to coach.
Yeah.
In the third grade, I knew it. And
you mentioned your dad was a great coach. Did he coach?
He coached summer baseball.
Okay, yep.
But he was the first coach I ever knew that he called it skull practice. That we'd sit around and we'd talk about the theory and the thinking part of the game.
Yeah,
and he did
in your brain.
And he did situations all the time in baseball coaching, where he'd put a runner at second and say, "Okay, guys, there's 2 outs," and then he'd just hit the ball somewhere. Make you think about what you're going to do if the ball's hit to you.
Right.
And I took that into my coaching to try to get my players to understand something. And one of the last things my dad said to me before he passed away, he said, "Remember, son, always know why you're doing what you're doing. Always know why you're doing what you're doing."
Wow.
And that's the last 2 things he said. And it was a privilege to be with my dad when he passed. I was there with him. He said, "Always remember who you are."
Yep.
And know why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's good.
Well, that's the premise of this whole entire podcast that we put together, is to get in the 80% of the who and 20% of the what. I mean, we can talk about what we do all day long, but what motivates you is these things that we're talking about, these exact stories. Man, it's rich. What did it look like? Obviously the career, I've changed careers, never at 33 years into one. Like that's, you set down a life.
Yeah.
To pick up another one, that you had to have had some identity wrapped up in basketball. You were successful. You only had
Absolutely.
3 losing seasons in 33 years. Like, I'm freaking Coach Nichols, right? Like,
Exactly.
Probably there was
hard to separate it.
Probably there.
I mean, still Coach Nichols.
Yeah. Weather coach.
Weather coach,
so, you had this is it.
Yes.
And then you took that step it was out of obedience. We all know the Spirit of God is what was talking to you. And so you go do that. So probably there was some confidence in that, but still some unknowns.
Yes.
You know, how long did it take you to settle in?
It's good.
And get that identity exchange settled?
I don't have a date.
Sure.
But there was a process that ripped me apart because I come in at age 50 and I'm having, the technology of doing the weather has changed. Everything's changed. The young reporters, they don't know me. And they don't know me from the weekends. See, we had the highest rated newscast in the nation when I did weekends with Jim McCurdy. We had a 54% of the audience.
Wow.
And that was unbelievable. And it was kind of a big deal, but some time had passed, and these new kids on the block, so to speak, didn't have a clue who this old guy.
You got to prove
who's
yourself again.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm having to ask them to show me how to do something. But they're one of the things I think greatness in any arena, if there's true greatness, you're going to find humility.
That's right.
I think that's the number one quality for achieving in life is humility. And it was a forced humility. I'm not some great guy. It's just forced. I had to ask, excuse me, come here and show me on how to do this.
Yeah.
And then 30 minutes later, they got to where none of them would come around me because they knew I was going to have to ask them how to do it. And the news director at the time, and he and I have talked about this. He was very skeptical because he didn't hire me, but the general manager hired me. And he said, I'm going to see if I can give him the absolute worst assignments.
Wow.
And see if he really wants to do this. And he sent me one time over to Mary Neal with a camera by myself to do some obscure story. And he'd send me to Early. He'd send me to, nearly to Possum Kingdom in Stevens County and have to have a story and bring it back.
Well, you had to have made an impact in Stevens County because whatever you did there with the camera, maybe it's because of this or not, there's an actual Sam Nichols Day in Stevens County now, December 13th,
yes,
annually. Like, was that attached to you running out and doing weather or reporting things there? Or was it something else?
No, it was during COVID.
Okay.
Because the county Judge Roach over there, asked if there's any way I could post some stuff on their Facebook page, but he would call me all the time during every severe weather and say, Sam, what's it look like for tomorrow? What's it look like? And he said, why don't I just make you an administrator on the Stevens County Facebook page?
Yeah.
And I am. And I posted something yesterday about the potential for some storms. And it's because they've asked me, and I've done special things on their Facebook page, and so
I'm intrigued by this, and I know Cameron is too. Both of us we love social media, and I'm growing up. I'm 44. I've got two daughters. They're 17 and 12. This has been a part of us learning it. Is being in it with them as parents. We restrict so much, and then you give some. I'm in constant conversations. I do a lot of things with men. And there's this persona that a lot of men will back out and go, it's just too much. I can't keep up. That's my wife's. She'll figure it out, or they'll teach us. And even a joke, like, they teach us more. And I'm of the mindset of like, no, man, this is not the game to get out of. We got to get in this game. We have to get in this game. Like, that's a big deal that you took that decision to do that.
Well, there's a really good book called The Anxiety Generation. It talks about how in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, children went from a activity-based culture to a phone-based culture.
Yeah.
And during that same period of time, you can overlap the charts of children increased anxiety, increased depression, increased self-mutilation and cutting, increased suicides. And it talks about also, the author does, during this same period of time, the phenomenon that parents became very protective of the physical environment, but nearly absent in the digital environment.
Yeah, just sit here and do this and be quiet.
And probably the biggest form of monitoring was don't stay on that too long. Not knowing the giants that are lurking in the digital world, and the children were so vulnerable, and we're paying the price for it.
Sure.
My son-in-law is a pastor in Ohio, and my daughter, they live up there, and their two sons played on the state championship football team in Ohio. The younger one's the quarterback, and the other one's the wide receiver, and they didn't get phones till they were 16.
Yep.
And every day when they come home, Cody, my son-in-law, sits down with them and he goes through their phones, every text message they received and every text message they sent. Now that may seem a little intrusive and a little oppressive,
right?
But that he said that, and the boys told me, we went up to visit them this year and saw a ball game, that it gives them some conversation every day. But that gives the kids some guardrails.
Yeah.
But that is a fascinating phenomenon that parents became more protective in the physical realm, but absent because they didn't understand the digital world.
Yeah, and as you're saying that was in the 2020-ish, you said?
Yeah.
You've got COVID, everything shuts down for a season, and you're at home. There's all these studies that kind of brew out of that. I hate that we timestamp things by COVID, but we do.
It is a marker.
It was such a deal, yeah. And at the time, that's 4 years ago. I've got an 8-year-old and a 13-year-old. I mean, this is that hotbed prime time. Your kids, Cameron and our kids are relatively in the same kind of age ranges. It's what's funny about this is I know you're a book reader. You got to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we've gone down this road already, and I've roasted Cameron on here, so I'm going to do it again.
Go ahead.
But Cameron doesn't read books. Sam, we got to get Cameron reading books. Tell him, man. It's time. Like, if you had to refer one book to me and Cameron, what would you refer to us?
Bringing Out the Best in Others by Alan Loy McGinnis.
Okay,
it's
there
the
it
best
is.
book as a parent, as a husband, and as a coach. Bringing Out the Best in Others by Alan Loy McGinnis.
I'm going to type that down.
I had a tournament.
Bringing Out the Best in Others.
Bringing Out the Best in People, excuse me. And I gave a copy of that to every coach that came to my basketball tournament because it just, so many principles are so good. It's easy read. And like one of the principles is sometimes people won't get on your bandwagon, so you find a way to get on their bandwagon.
Yeah. Hey, I can tell you, when I was coaching in Athens, we had the school system had never had success, and everything was siloed. You had football, baseball, basketball, softball. Everybody was against each other. We wanted to figure out how to make this work, and in an off season. We sat down as a coaching staff and we came up with this idea called Hornet Nation. We even have joked about this, but the whole initiative was, instead of complaining about people not coming to our games and all that, we're going to give our kids points in our competition system through off season for showing up to the basketball game, for showing up to the baseball game. We started teaching them chants. I mean, this got ridiculous, and they fell in love with it. They didn't even know what it was like to have fun. But it's more fun, actually, to go serve and get excited about other people. We did this for the whole end of the fall, the spring, into the summer. We ended up taking a travel bus to Brownsboro. You'd love this. Fred Griffin would have been there. You used to coach there.
Yeah.
Brownsboro Bears.
We almost got removed. This is like me and 3 coaching buddies. We take a bus load of kids over there because they want their points, you know, and they've fallen in love with it. We beat Brownsboro. The cops have to come over. We get security, whatever you call it, out of the gym. We're like, what have we created? We created a monster. But then when the football season rolled around the next year, our stands were packed. Everybody came. We weren't doing it for that. We just had the realization of we've got to go reap. We got to go sow. We have to go sow. And I saw it happen, and then you can drive in that town now. It's been 15 years, and you know what they got painted all over the walls and all the stores is Hornet Nation and all that.
Well, I mean, y'all both kind of mentioned it. And I remember hearing somebody say this in another interview that we did is, if the generation, if the kids that are coming up today, if you want them to learn something, either you teach or something else will.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've heard someone say it like this.
And whether you're a coach, a mentor, a father, or all three,
it's it, man.
It's either going to come from you or it's going to come from something else.
Absolutely. Yeah. You were at McMurry when we were having so much success there, and it was such a great atmosphere. My players, I wanted them integrated into the campus community, not just go to class, the gym, the dorm. I wanted they went to football games, made signs.
And we were friends with every one of them. I could probably name your starting 5 from 25 years ago.
In fact, we were 7th in the nation in attendance in women's basketball, and we're proud to have that. We had professors. More of the faculty came. When I first came to McMurry, there were about 20 people come to games.
Right.
Everything I said in a timeout, everybody could hear because it was so quiet. But one of the things that happens when there's pressure and when there's stress, people have a tendency to get in individual foxholes rather than get in a bunker together. And I talk to my players about that all the time. When you have a rough patch in a season, every team's going to go through that.
Sure.
That's when everybody kind of pulls apart and starts, again, getting very protective and thinking of self totally. And you, as a coach, you have to bring it back and say, we're going to get in the bunker together. We're not going to be in individual foxholes. That doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great too. These things these aren't gender concepts.
No, they're not.
When you coach
unique.
men's, that's just the truth. And what I love though is, you are a man and you're leading women. I'm a dad. I've got daughters. Yeah. Like, it's refreshing to hear this because sometimes I can develop the thought, well, if I had boys, I'd do it this way. No, that's not really true. These things, truths are truths.
Well, when I went to McMurry, I said I wanted to recruit graduates. That's what I told them. I'm recruiting graduates. We were fortunate to have 100% graduation in 12 years. And recruiting strong women, minority women. When I went to McMurry, I found a scholarship that was $10,000 a year for if you're a minority in the top 10% of your class. I said, why is nobody using that? And they said, well, and the Division III at one point was kind of a exclusive group, wanted to be exclusive. And I said, I'm going after smart minority kids because I've got $10,000 here I can give them every year.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. And we had several of our players that were the first ones in their family to ever graduate from college. I have some now that are stockbrokers, some that are physician's assistants, some that are pharmacists, some that are school superintendents and assistant superintendents and attorneys.
I mean, doesn't this make your heart want to explode?
Oh, yeah.
In the best of ways?
Yeah. You feel like you maybe have made a little bit of a dent somewhere. But that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to use athletics, and it sounds, same old stuff. People roll their eyes. Use athletics as an arena to build something outside that will last.
Well, that is the segue. I want to talk about basketball smiles because that is exactly what you just described is using that arena outside and literally outside. I mean, a whole other country. So tell us these guys. I'm certain. I don't know the percentage. I mean, I think percentages, I always joke and say 87%, is made up or whatever, which is whatever. I don't know, but I'm guessing there's a high percentage of people that follow you in whether it's social media, on news, they have no clue about basketball
Probably
smiles,
so.
which may be your most heart-dedicated thing of your life.
And that's one of the biggest frustrations because there's only so much of me to go around, and I think people would help with it if they knew about it. But in 1999, at the Women's Basketball Coaches Association national meeting in San Jose, California, I got inducted to the Hall of Fame. And like with most conventions, you have the convention center and you take a shuttle bus back to the hotel. And after it's over, we're standing waiting for the shuttle bus, and this lady comes up to me and said, I really appreciated your speech, enjoyed it. I wish you could come to my country and do a clinic for our coaches and a camp for my kids. And I said, well, I've gone to Russia. I've gone to Africa with basketball. And I said, I'd love to come. Where are you from? She said, the Bahamas. And I said, I'm feeling led already. But she said, no, you don't understand. I coach in an area that has the highest murder rate per square mile in the Caribbean. My kids are really poor. They call us trash because they do. They call them the trash kids because their landfill's close to the school. And nobody cares about them, and I can't pay you anything. And I said, I'll be there.
Yeah, that does not sound like the Bahama trip I thought about. Yeah.
I said, I'll be there. And she said, no, you didn't hear me. And she repeated all those. I said, no, you didn't hear me. I said, I'm coming. And Coach Patty Johnson invited me. She said, okay. And so we worked out details. And that first year, I went over to Athletic Supply and got with Marty Martinez and the guys over there and said, do you have anything I can take over there? Maybe some shorts or that got misprinted and misspelled or whatever. And so he gave me a bag of stuff. And so I go over there. Patty picks me up. Patty Johnson picks me up at the airport. And we go down into the inner city. And it's like parachuting into Beirut. I mean, we have over here, the guys are drinking out of the brown paper bags. Over here, they're smoking pot. And there's 85 kids. They range from 5 years old to 20. And I have 6 basketballs. And I'm by myself. And I looked around and I said, God, and this is true. I said, God, if you get me out of here alive, I think we're on to something. And we had a great time the first year. And so for the first 5 years or so, I did it by myself. Just me and Sandy would go over there. And we do team time where we talk about values. We talk about nonviolent conflict resolution, being a good citizen. We talk about my relationship with Jesus and invite them to have one. And after 5 years, I said, God, this is getting so big. I've either got to shut it down or send me some help.
Yeah.
And then I started having some coaching friends of mine that would raise their own money. And we have had, Patty and I made an agreement, no kid would ever pay for our camp. Because when she grew up, they had a camp down in this area, and she was so poor, she had no money. It cost $10 to go, and she didn't have it. She went and begged the coach, let me sweep the gym or the outdoor court, do anything so I can come. He wouldn't let her. She said, I went every day and had my hands through that chain link fence and watched that camp. And she said, I made a vow that day I'd have a camp one day and no kid would be on the other side of the fence. And I said, I'm with you, sister. And we've had over 12,000 kids go through our program.
Wow.
In 25 years.
I have to ask, since that's so awesome. I want to ask you, and you brought it up here when you just, you told that lady, I'm coming. Right. But you also mentioned, and then your career change. That's kind of where I initially started thinking about it, but this one's a way better example. But can you talk about what obedience means to you? Because 33 years, and I feel like even my generation and above has kind of lost this. Like, I just retired after 20 years in the military, and I'm freaking out. You know what I mean? I have no idea what's happening, but and I'm sure there was some back and forth with you and the Lord and everything with these decisions. But 33 years doing something, going into another career that you've been in there 20 plus years. The example you just gave about saying, I'm going to that.
I'm coming.
Yeah,
that
you've
murder
done it
for 25 years now.
25 years
on the basketball. 33 coaching, 20 as a meteorologist full time, 25 years of basketball smalls. Like you're a man of commitment.
Can you just expand on that, your thought when you and how you use obedience and surrendering to just those types of changes?
Well, I got talked into something one time, and it taught me a valuable lesson. I was coaching at White Oak, Texas. And I'd coached there 8
East
years.
Texas, Longview.
That's in East Texas, right next to Longview. And I'd burned out, and God gave me a great teaching on this, the 3 Ds of burnout. Disappointment turns to discouragement to discontent, and that sets you up for deception. And I had people come to me, oh, you're such a fine Christian man. You need to apply for an administrator's job. You'd be such a great one. God needs godly men in administration, which he does. He just didn't need me there. That wasn't my thing. Right. But I finally got talked into it, and I said, I am so sick of coaching. We'd had 5 straight seasons of at least 20 wins, going to the playoffs, and I'm unhappy. Go figure. We got beat by the state champions, it seemed like, every year in the second round of the playoffs. But when you get disappointment turn into discouragement, discontent, you're set up for deception. I'm sitting here saying, this is terrible. I'm at a dead-end coaching job. We're beating everybody in the country. Yeah. And so the assistant principal's job comes open at the middle school, so I take it. I knew the first day I'm in the book room counting books and putting them out I knew I'm in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And it was the most miserable year, but it also taught me a lot. It taught me to listen in here and not listen out here.
Right. Yeah.
And so you ask how I knew. I just know. Like my friends, when they call on the phone, I don't have to have caller ID. I know their voice. And I knew who was talking, and when God said, I just knew. They're just a release. It's hard to explain a supernatural experience in natural terms. Yeah. But I just knew. Now, was I afraid not to do it and afraid of getting punished? No, it wasn't a deal like that. It's like, this is wide open to you.
Right.
And this is where you need to be. And one of my constant prayers is, God, I want to be in place. Wherever that is, whatever in place means, that's where I want to be. Good. Because I spent a year miserable, totally miserable as assistant principal.
And even on this line of obedience, so you get that lesson, you begin living a life of obedience, and probably you were before, and we, sometimes you think you're obeying and it ended up not being what he wanted you to do. And then you learn that lesson, and you got a whole book's worth of this, but you're into Basketball Smiles. I know a story. Obviously that's something that God led you to do. It was the right thing. It's got fruit. It's got also 12,000 kids have been impacted by it. Like you can't even, but it hasn't been the safest environment.
Nope.
You've had situations there where I bet not just that first year, share that story where you've got a guy, you got guns coming around you. You got like,
a lot of our we do girls in the morning, boys in the afternoon, and a lot of our boys are gang affiliated. In fact, one of the worst years we had guys that were just every time we turned around, the coaches were having breakup arguments. And I found out their political parties have colors. Like we're red and blue over here. It's like gold and blue over there. And I bought scrimmage vests, so when you scrimmage, you can tell who's on your team. I bought blue and gold jerseys. And I didn't know.
What are the odds of just
saying, here we go,
and it's like a Democrat saying, I'm not going to wear that Republican jersey. I said, it's a
What are you
jersey. We're
talking
playing
about?
basketball.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Or vice versa. And so I learned, okay, get purple and orange or something like that. But you learn, but when you deal in that environment, it takes only a spark. And it gets out of hand in a hurry. In fact, we spend $1,000 a year on security.
Yeah.
But one year we had the gangs attack our camp because we were hurting the recruiting so bad.
Yeah.
Which we started camp, and Mark Hanna, one of the coaches in the Bahamas, was walking around with a baseball bat. I said, what's up? You going to play some baseball later? He said, don't worry about it, Coach. You just keep coaching. So, okay. Well, when they rushed the camp, that's why he had the bat, because he'd gotten wind of it.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of off-duty policemen who had kids in the camp that I think that was divine appointment. But it was a scary deal. And, one year I had some kids come to me and say, hey, Coach Nichols, Damien over here has his gun with him today. I went, great. And Damien was a good kid, and I called him over. I said, Damien, do you have your gun? He said, Coach, I need it to get home. But I said, do you mind me keeping it while you? Oh, no, you can keep it. Just here's my backpack.
Yeah.
And
wow.
We have that, and we started feeding the kids years ago when we found out most of our kids eat every other day, just anything. And we were having kids getting sick at camp because we were coaching them, and you'd say, hey, are you okay? I said, when's the last time you ate? Oh, 2 days ago. And so we started feeding them, and we just try to take care of them.
Yeah. Wow.
God told me that they're not dented cans. Don't give them dented cans. He told me to run it exactly like I'd run the camp at McMurry. Give them the very best T-shirts, very best shorts, if we give them shorts, basketballs, but don't give them second-class stuff.
Yeah. What's the spirit of excellence that you have? I mean, there's something about doing things just well.
It says in Psalms, you were knit together in your mother's womb like a tapestry, and we're all different. You give me a pile of lumber and saws and hammers, and I'll run. I have no skill in that area, none. I'm not a handyman at all. Some things, yard work doesn't interest me, where some guys love it. I could care less. But this is just how he made me.
Yeah.
And I was raised to be excellent in everything you do. Go back to my dad. He had it wasn't self-serve Texaco station. It was 3 pumps. And I can remember him sitting in the winter, and he'd sit at the kitchen table. And if he'd moved his hands, they were so chapped from dipping in the chamois barrel and wiping windshield that they'd bleed. His hands would bleed. But yet on Sunday, he would clean up. And he knew how to dress, and he would dress up. Yeah. And it was all about excellence. And my mother was all about excellence. I just don't know any other way. And the 3 things that I write down every day when I go to work, the great coach John Wooden, when he went to first grade, his dad told him 3 things. And I stole those from Coach Wooden. Mm-hmm. Don't whine, don't complain, don't make excuses. Good. And I try to live by those 3 things every day when I go to work, because we can all find something to whine about or to complain about or to make excuses, and that does not promote excellence, and that doesn't move me any closer to my destiny. Yeah. And, as I said, I turned 75 November 16th, and I don't I feel 40.
Right.
If you put me in a room with the Abilene young professionals, I'd feel right at home. They say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you have to be around all these young people." Why? I said, I fit in much better with them. I don't fit in with old people.
Well, you spent a lifetime coaching young people, and then when you went into the weather, you had these younger people you started learning from. I mean, you used the word humility.
Yeah.
And so you've built a life out of that. It makes sense that that's a comfort zone.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm just I look at older people my age and older, and I don't relate. People ask, when are you going to retire? I said, I've got too much to do.
Yeah. Well, don't ever stop doing that, because if there's one drum that I've been beating in our men's ministry that I get to oversee with a team, it's not just me. We've got we're super blessed, is that every man needs a couple important relationships. You need brothers, you need fathers, and then you need sons. And we can't. I'm 44 years old. I've got a few men I see in that way, not to replace God. I'm not talking about these guys point you. I mean, just the idea of that. Call it a mentor. I just like calling it a father, because I know what the enemy stripped in that word with people's view of what a good dad is. And so, but in order for me to actually teach that, we have to have guys like you who are willing to invest time into younger generations.
Absolutely.
And not that it's
Without
super age dependent, but there is something about the generational connections.
And that's one of the things I wish I could have a conference with young professionals and say, here's what all the ways I've screwed up.
Yeah.
Let me give you some examples of things I would do different.
What's one big thing you would tell them in that area?
Don't value the opinions of other people as highly as you probably do.
Good.
Yeah.
Put them in perspective. I'm a people pleaser, and I fight it all the time. And it's hard for me to say no, but you need to learn to say no. And also the thing
talking to me right now, dude.
with every organization, there's 3 C's that are crucial. There's the crowd, the community, and the core. The problem with a lot of coaches, you spend all your time emotionally with the crowd, and those are going to come and go. Even the community is going to come and go. You better find your core and feed that, invest in it, prioritize that, and don't let the crowd and the community steal your joy.
So what is? I'm glad you said it like that. What is? Because we've talked about your careers and your nonprofit, and and the amazing work that you're doing for people. Like, what is your core, and what what is your core do for you that just keeps you just affecting others in a positive way?
My relationship with God, and I consider myself a worshiper. I can't sing a lick, but worship has nothing to do with singing.
You can surrender.
My relationship with God, that's where I'm centered, and I try to come back to that and stay in that area. And I know when I wander a little bit and get too busy or different things like that, but the values that are associated with my walk with God, that's what keeps me centered. And I have the most wonderful wife in the world. And I tell every married couple, you want what Sandy and I have.
Yeah.
She's...
And say that again. I know I keep doing this to you. You want...
Every married couple wants what Sandy and I have.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with saying that.
No.
I think some people, they develop this thing like, well, I don't need to make it about... No, we need good, godly marriages to say, my marriage is awesome. You need what I have. I have what you need. Like, thank you.
Yes.
And she has a discernment that's different than mine. And I'll bounce something off her, and she'll say, no, that's a bunch of crap. No, no,
I like
that
Sandy.
Doesn't work. No. And sometimes I'll say, I just stuck about this. She says, what? And she said, well, just this. Oh, okay. And like one year flying back from Basketball Smiles, we had one of our coaches do a dribbling station. And he told the guys, okay, when you go home, you can do these drills by yourself with your basketball. And they just looked at him. He said, okay, how many of you have a basketball? 1 kid out of 15. He told Sandy that story. She said, next year, every kid, Sam's going to have a custom basketball, just like you have at McMurry. I said, honey, they pay to come to my camp at McMurry.
Yeah.
And she said, I don't care. We have a big God.
Yeah.
And we've now given away over 9,000 basketballs.
Yeah. How can somebody get involved with Basketball Smiles?
Just go to basketballsmiles.com.
Yeah.
And we're a 501c3, and my daughter has done a great job as a marketing director for us. We have a great video that Derek Spates here from Abilene put together for us. Derek went with us this first time last year. And
it's every June.
Every
so
June.
People could give financially. They could talk to you about maybe partnering and going. I mean, they could. There's not just one way. Yeah, there's all sorts.
See, I've always wanted to feed the kids before camp just something, so they'd have some fuel in them to use. And I was telling my mother-in-law and sister-in-law last year, 2 weeks before we go, I just wish we could feed them. She said, what do you want to feed them? I said, well, a Cliff Bar or Power Crunch or something. And my sister-in-law says, let me work on that. Called me the next day, and she said, I'm up here in Lubbock, and I talked to the R.C. Taylor Company, which I think is kind of like a distributing company. And how many bars you want? I said, I can probably afford 500. And she said, well, they're not going to sell them to you. She wants to give you 500. Can we meet in Snyder Saturday and pick them up?
See you there.
So we get there and get them. Sandy and I go home and start bagging them up. And these are expensive. The top of the line, again, my kids aren't dented cans.
Yeah.
Cliff Bars, Power Crunch, just Kind Bars, whatever you. And so we're putting about 20 in a bag, in Ziploc bags. We keep counting, 500, 600, 700, 920 bars. Now we've got to figure out how to get them there because it's too late to ship them.
Yeah.
And so I call a good friend of mine who's the Governor General for the country of the Bahamas. She used to be Deputy Prime Minister, the number one female politician in the country. And she said, oh, they'll never check you. They don't check tourists coming in. They just check Bahamians coming in to make sure. And I said, what if they do check me at the airport? She said, oh, just call me on my cell. It'll be all right. And I said, okay.
Yeah.
And so I get 2 big Wilson ball bags that held 6 basketballs. And I get Kyle Williams and Renee Williams, who have gone with me for 4 years. And I said, I need y'all to do something for me. Carry these through the airport. And they said, what? And I explained, I said, you'll be fine. I said, I've already had a second bag full of stuff, so I couldn't, and Sandy had a second bag. So Kyle and Renee are walking through the airport with these ball bags right through customs. And so we get to the camp and just lay them out for the kids.
Wow.
Say, you can have as many as you want. We take a water break, go grab you a bar. When you come in, get a bar. When you leave, take a bar with you. And guess what? The lady at R.C. Taylor said we're going to do it again next year.
Yep.
So
that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. So there's ways people can get involved and tap into generosity however they could do it. I mean, I'm sure there's some things that can be logistically difficult, but it sounds like, hey, if someone's willing to help, let's talk about it.
Yeah, Chuck at F3 Printing, he did all of our coaching shirts with our 25th anniversary logo, and he said, how about I make some camp shirts for you? And I said, sure. He said, now they're going to be neon. I said, okay.
Yeah, just don't make them gold and whatever.
Just always blue and gold,
blue.
dark blue and gold. And so he does these neon shirts, and the kids went completely crazy for them. Mm-hmm. And so that was a real blessing. And it had our camp slogan on the back. Excuse me. It says, our camp slogan is, my current condition is not my conclusion.
Nice.
It's awesome.
And that's what we tell them. You have a baby at 13, you're not stuck. We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
You get arrested at 13. God's not through with you. He hadn't thrown you away.
Yeah.
And we preach that and hammer it on the kids, because I need to hear that every day.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, when you've been forgiven much, you forgive much.
And I think it's a very fundamental point of my Christian philosophy is we can only extend unconditional love proportional to how we see ourselves receiving conditional love, unconditional love.
Yeah. When you can't give what you don't have.
Exactly.
And
that's, to me, very fundamental. But there's no greater joy than to giving yourself away and blessing other people. And the sooner kids learn the joy of giving back, the happier their life's going to be. Awesome. A lot of people don't learn it till they're 20, 30, 40. But if we teach kids at 10, 12, the joy of giving.
Yeah.
That's something.
Well, you live a life that's been exalted. The whole time we've been sitting here talking, I've been thinking about this, going back to the very beginning of the conversation. You talked about humility. Those who exalt themselves will be humbled. Those who humble themselves will be exalted. And you haven't lived a life trying to be exalted. What's happened is you've been exalted because you've remained humble. And that hasn't always been easy. There's been things that have been tough.
And that's one of the great things about Sandy. She keeps me grounded.
Yeah.
She reminds me every day I'm not a celebrity.
Yeah.
But
Easy, man.
You can't be in coaching and you can't be in television without an ego.
Yeah.
That's just part of it, and you have to keep that in check.
Yeah.
And I had a great lesson taught by a guy that came to our church years ago, and I said, how do you handle the compliments? Because people would come up after he ministered and said, "Oh, you were great," and everything. And he says, he said, don't ever tell them, "Oh, it's just not me, it's just God." Don't tell them that. He said, that makes them feel terrible. Accept the compliment. He said, that gives you something to offer in the evening sacrifice.
Good.
Wow.
Is that not cool?
That is good.
And so I take compliments and say thank you, but that gives me something to offer back.
Yeah, that's great.
I feel like I could write a page of just one-liners that you said.
Oh man, you could go back and
throughout.
hit rewind on this and just nugget yourself.
But I have to ask you, because I feel like I've asked just about everyone that we've done this with. Well, no, we'll get to that.
We're going to date night.
We'll get to that. But with all of your, with all of your experiences and your years of wisdom and everything like that, is there one quote or two that you just, if you're talking life into people, your players, your kids at your camp, your family, your kids, whatever, random people in the community, AYP members, if we can get you out there, which is funny because the head of AYP today asked me who they could get to come speak to them. Yep. But if just that one phrase that always pops into your head, what would that be?
It's a phrase I got out of a Reader's Digest 100 years ago. And it comes from Pope John the 23rd. I never knew he coached, but he must have coached.
I didn't know that either.
But because the quote is this, and I had it written on my practice. I had my practice plan on a note card, and I wrote it on there every day. See everything, overlook a great deal, correct a little. I was a very frustrated coach when I saw everything, tried to correct everything. Saw everything, correct everything. And you either give people in your life liberty or you hold them in bondage. You can't do it halfway. And you got to let people go. And the great ones figure it out. Like I had point guards that had, you can't coach every dribble. You have to let them play and correct every now and then. And the great ones figure it out.
That's really good.
That's
But
fantastic.
see everything, overlook a great deal, correct a little. It's a great concept for being a husband.
Yep.
And being working with people.
Yeah. Being a dad.
But seeing everything and correcting everything, that and catch your people being good. Catch people being good.
It's good.
When my boys were 12 or 13, if they go take a shower and you go in there and you find all the towels put up and the floor's clean, you'd say, okay, that's what you're supposed to do. But you go in there and there's towels everywhere and stuff like that, you're going to jump their tail. But see, catch them being good. I used to write thank you notes to my players and stick it in their travel bags on away games. So at some point on that away game, they'd open their travel bag and get their uniforms out, and there's a thank you note from Coach Nichols. I write Sandy thank you notes, and I'll put them in the freezer, in the refrigerator, or different places where she'll find them.
Wow.
But catch people being good and see everything, overlook a great deal, and correct a little.
Overlook a great deal. The opposite of that sounds like staunch legalism in religion.
Oh, yeah.
What you just described really is love. I'm going to let you have enough slack to figure out who you are. I'm going to rein you in to keep you protected. But at the end of the day, my love is unconditional. That's kind of what I just heard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Where do you and Sandy go on date night? Where's your favorite place in town?
Our patio.
Now I'm telling you, man, I just had the vision like those cool sunshades that come down they just came down. Everybody's named a place, but like your confidence in that's like, shh.
We have a house that has an offset patio. So as windy as it gets, the wind doesn't come around. We have a TV there, and she is my favorite person in the world to spend time with.
Love it.
Yeah.
And she's a great cook. I cook too. But us sitting on the patio with each other, that's it doesn't get any better. In fact, we just had a 4-day vacation last week on the patio.
Wow.
And We can dress like we want, eat what we want, drink what we want. If we want iced tea, if we want coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just being with her. And that's our favorite place on the patio.
Well, man, thank you.
Hey, I've had a ball.
That was good. That was so good.
It's fantastic. And for your service, like I know you say you take compliments, and I hear all what you're saying. That challenges me a lot. I'm the guy that will get up and get in front of a lot of people and, have someone come up and say, well, it was a great job. And my quick thing is like, well, that's but it's a good reminder for me for sure. But there's so much more, your involvement, even in the military with helping out in there and all that. Like I don't have to tell you this for you to know, but I do want to express like it's very encouraging, and I think it ought to be inspiring, not just motivating for people, because anybody can go do these things. Well, I mean, you would say this about yourself. You're not special or chosen in some set apart way.
I'm a jag, just a guy.
Yeah. So let's go, guys. Let's get going.
Well, I want one brief final story. This is my favorite coaching story of all time. It took place over here on Pioneer at the convenience store on Pioneer. I went in to get me a Diet Mountain Dew. Yes, I have an addiction, but no.
My dad loves Diet Mountain Dew.
And so I go in there, and there's this guy. He's about 45 or so, and he has salt and pepper dreads, and he's about 6'4", and is about 240 now, kind of out of shape, but you could tell he's an athlete. At one time, I just glanced and saw him, and there's a couple other people, and I go get my Mountain Dew, and I'm walking to the counter to pay for it, and he says, "Everybody stop what you're doing and listen to me." And I went, oh, my gosh, we're going to get robbed right here. And he says, "That man right there, that's Coach Sam Nichols, and he changed my life. Come here, Coach." And I walked over there, and he hugged me around that, and he says, when he was coaching girls basketball at Abilene High, I played basketball for the boys team, and every day after practice, when they were through and we were through, he would stay and shoot with me and talk to me about what it means to be a man. And this man changed my life. Coach, hadn't seen you in years, but just wanted to hug your neck and thank you for everything. And we visited a while, then I promptly went out in my truck and cried, Yeah. And I'll tell you the honest truth, I don't remember doing it.
Yeah.
It was just that simple. And the punchline is, it had nothing to do with All-Americans, All-State, championship rings. It didn't have anything to do with that.
He wasn't even on your team.
No, he wasn't even on my team. So that means we have opportunities.
There was nothing in it for you.
Every day to just speak life, encouragement, make somebody's day.
Yeah.
And it didn't cost me anything. It was so inconsequential to me. Just stuck around and played a little bit pickup with him. And I don't remember any the heavens parting and a hallelujah chorus while all that was going on. Just being nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you, man.
It's a way to wrap that one up.
That's it. Yeah.
Go do it.
Go do it. Go do it. Well, it's been awesome. Obviously, we're at the mill, and if you haven't come here, you got to come here and check this place out. I don't know if you and Sandy, I know the patio is important.
We're regular.
Come on out. Yeah.
We're regulars here.
Yeah, I figured so. So, yeah, don't be strangers at this place. Thanks, man.
You bet. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed it.